I had probably 3 or 4 teams there at the end that were really serious. And, when it came down to it, I felt like I was just valued more by Toronto than I was by other teams. And I don't mean that as a slight to the other teams or anything. It's just how I was feeling. And great roster, great young group of guys. They were a good baseball team last year, and they got better this offseason. They pretty much told me I was going to be DH most of the time, and I'll be able to play first base as well to give, Vladdy some time off. If my knee is healthy, which it is, I feel amazing right now. I'm going to be that same player that I was in 2020 and 2021.
This is a guy who knows his way around a big game. That's Brandon Belt. Gets on base, good defense when he plays. If he stays healthy, he's going to hit 25 home runs. I mean, this is a good move. 1 year, about $9.5 million to him. Shi Davidi covers the Blue Jays back and forth. Always a pleasure to have him with us here today. And Shi, they've been very busy in this offseason. The trade with Arizona for Varsho. He's a good outfielder. Bassett, they gave $60 million to. Kiermaier, and he fits right in. It's a good move by Toronto here in the last couple of days. Thoughts with that first? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think they were looking for a little bit of thump. They addressed a lot of the defensive issues that they had in the outfield, improved there. They covered some of their pitching needs. But you're kind of looking at trading away Teoscar Hernandez. You're like, okay, well, they've got some of that offense back, but who's going to deliver the rest of it? And, Brandon Belt, assuming that he's healthy and everything goes to plan, should do that in a dynamic way from the left side of the lineup. As a guy who slots in as primarily a DH, be able to spell Vladimir Guerrero Jr. a bit, as you mentioned, and really deliver that impact pop from the left side that the Blue Jays haven't had. So, between him, Dalton Varsho, Kevin Kiermaier, the Blue Jays have added a significant left-handed bats to the lineup. And that's going to really change things. This is a team that last year had the fewest at-bats with platoon advantage in the major leagues, just 30.7%. That's 22% below league average. So this is going to give them a chance to have more optimization in a lot of their plate appearances. And if everything goes to plan, some impact as well.
Yeah, 100% right. And I tell you that payroll, too, $239 million over that luxury tax. We all know they're a big market, and now they're playing like a big market and spending like a big market. It's got to make a Blue Jay fan happy. They are putting their money where their mouth is. Thoughts on that for a sec? Let me hear.
Yeah, 100%. This is a big market. This is one of the biggest markets in North America. And look, the primary challenge for the Blue Jays, and they're one of 30 in this, is that they collect a significant portion of their revenues in Canadian dollars, and that's not comparable to the U.S. dollar right now. So despite that, there are enough revenues on a national level. The Blue Jays have enough revenue creation at a local level that they should be able to compete. The first phase of a renovation of the Rogers Center will be completed this offseason. The second phase, perhaps the more significant one in terms of revenue generation, will be done after next offseason. But there are some trend lines that are pointing to revenue increasing for the Blue Jays, and they have a payroll right now that is indicative of a team that expects to be able to make money and behaving akin to the market that it's in.
All right, now they can hit with anybody. Can their pitching, bullpen included, is it good enough in a short series? The two top guys, Gausman and Manoah, top of the rotation, then the third and fourth starter. A couple of guys in our bullpen. In your eyes, Shi, is it good enough to beat the Yankees in a short series, to compete with that great Houston staff in a short series and beyond? Do they have enough, in your eyes, big-time starting pitching and bullpen?
Yeah, I think from a rotation standpoint, the Blue Jays will be happy to put up their front four against pretty much anybody else's front four, right? Jose Barrios last year has to be an aberration for him, right? That's not who he is as a pitcher. There are a lot of indicators to make the Blue Jays believe that he's going to get back to form. It wasn't really a stuff issue. It was the Blue Jays feel is maybe more of a usage and location issue. So if some adjustments there, he gets back to form. You've got him behind Manoah and Gausman, and then you throw Bassett in the mix. That's a pretty good base. I think if anything, where you look at them and say, okay, are they the same as everyone else? It's in the bullpen. And, the Blue Jays have Jordan Romano, the all-star closer, and there's some big arm there. And, Jimmy Garcia's got some pretty good velo, but they don't have that slate of 98, 100-mile-an-hour arms that you see in a lot of the other elite bullpens. They have some relievers who do it in a different way. Eric Swanson, who they acquired from the Mariners, they expect him to be a big part of things. They've got Tim Meza. They've got Adam Simber. So they have a lot of guys. They've got a few prospects in the minors who have some big velo but are unproven and maybe need an opportunity to get up there. Nate Pearson is certainly the big one that a lot of people look to, a name that maybe people are less familiar with, someone who was injured last year, but Hagen Danner is a big arm who impressed at the Arizona Fall League. So they have some pieces there, but I think from a rotation standpoint, they match up really well with everyone. From a bullpen standpoint, they've got the potential to be a very effective unit, but is it as dominant as some of the other ones around the majors? I think that remains to be seen.
All right, Bichette first and then Guerrero. They got to get both these players signed. We just discussed their big market potential and what it is. Bichette's first, 2024. You and I have discussed this in the past. Where do we stand there?
Yeah, I mean, the arbitration deadline is tomorrow, and I think that'll be the next step. And I think in both those guys, it's to the point where the Blue Jays are going to have to push it a little bit to incentivize them because they're starting to make money in arbitration right now. Bichette's going to be his first turn through, so he's not making quite as much and hasn't banked as much as Guerrero just yet. But this is going to be Bichette's earning floor, probably about $7-8 million. At least that's what some of the projections suggest for him next year. And if that's his floor moving forward, well, how much do you have to pay him to buy him out of the opportunity to explore free agency? So it's a big decision. And I think one of the challenges the Blue Jays face is that it's two guys coming or going to hit free agency at the same time. And which one of those guys wants to sign first? Which one of those guys does sign first? If one signs for a certain number, does that impact the number for the other? It's complicated in a lot of ways, but I mean, clearly we see the Blue Jays do have the resources to do it. It's ultimately becomes a decision. Do they have the will, and can they find that sweet spot with the player?
Would be interesting. And last thing, Shi, the ballpark. Listen, Camden's a better park. Yankee Stadium's newer. Fenway is Fenway, Minute Maid, and everything else. The ballpark, you mentioned the renovations. I mean, it was very interesting when it was built in the early 90s. It's not the sort of ballpark you love necessarily. It's the big epicenter. It's not that small, little charming place. But I'm assuming they're going to stay there for the next whatever it might be. Help me there.
Yeah, I think there was a bit of an examination in terms of can they pull off one of the, a new ballpark with all the toys, bells and whistles now, some retail and social in and around it. And this is sort of the interim project that gets them to the next phase. And it's going to turn what was a multi-purpose facility into more of a baseball stadium. For people who are arriving or watching it on TV next year, the main difference for the 23 season will be in the outfield, which is being completely redone. They're not going to have they're going to have some asymmetry in the walls and the fences and elevated bullpens. It's going to have a very different look. And then the next phase will redo everything from in fair territory, foul pole to foul pole. So, this is going to really change the fan experience. It's going to change the look. It's going to change how the park plays. And is it going to be the classic stadiums you mentioned? No, but it should feel more like a ballpark than it does right now.
Excellent job, Shi. Thanks very much. Keep it up. Appreciate you coming on today.